And always so pleased to have on the line with us Congressman Mark Pocan, the congressman from Wisconsin, representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin. Pocan, POCAN.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N, because he is Representative Mark Pocan. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks so much, Tom. Glad to be here.
Great to have you with us. What's at the top of your mind? You can also tweet him, but you can also tweet you at Mark Pocan, M-A-R-K-P-O-C-A-N. What is at the top of your mind right now? What do you see as the big issues that people should be concerned about, or ideally doing something about, whether it's calling Congress or talking to their friends or whatever?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, we have to get a continuing resolution done in order to keep government open by next Friday. So that's kind of the issue that kind of this week.
Is it going to happen?
It'll happen. I think the problem is the Republicans are playing some games. They want to provide relief for Louisiana flooding, like we should, but they don't want to also provide any assistance to the people of Flint, Michigan, who've been drinking poisoned water for the last several years, thanks to a governor who
a Republican governor
caused them to a Republican governor who caused them to switch their water source. And now, while the Republicans claim the EPA is really at fault, well, then all the more reason why the federal government should be involved in helping provide some assistance. And yet they won't seem to. They can't understand a crisis in an area that Democrats represent, but they can understand a crisis where Republicans represent. We need to understand crises everywhere. So that's kind of one of the stumbling blocks in that continuing resolution, along with other pork they were trying to do. I think they finally have backed off some of the anti-Planned Parenthood language that they were trying to put in there around Zika. But I think we'll have something next week to get us through early December, and then we'll probably have an omnibus bill where we get to do this all over again.
Yeah. It seems like one of their big issues was also being able to fly the Confederate flag over or near the graves and military cemeteries of African-American soldiers. I mean, just an enormous insult.
Yeah, during the appropriations process, that was one of the sticking blocks and other things. But we've kind of already moved on, accepting we're not doing the appropriations process for now. We just want to keep government's doors open by next Friday. But I think that will happen because it doesn't do anyone any good to not have that happen right before an election. So even though the Tea Party would be fine with it, I think more responsible Republicans wouldn't be.
Progressive Democrats of America sent out a mailer a couple of days ago titled "Stop the Saudi Arms Deal." I'm curious your thoughts on where Congress is at on this and where that's going, and also on the bill to allow U.S. citizens, specifically 9/11 families, although they're not specified in the legislation, but that's who it was intended for, to sue the government of Saudi Arabia should it be determined in a court of law that there was culpability for 9/11.
Well, yeah, I think the White House has said they could consider vetoing it because, and it just went through on voice votes in our House. There's concerns. If you start this, can someone in a country where a family member has been killed by a U.S. drone now sue the U.S. government? I mean, at what point do we start?
Should they not be allowed to, though?
Well, I think that this is basically then acknowledging that if we think you can sue, that Saudi family can perhaps that come back at us in other ways.
Right.
And I think that's the concern the White House has on it right now. So I don't know if they've definitively decided what they're going to do, but I know that has been something that they've left out there. And of course, the question would be in a lame duck Congress or this late in their session, could they get overridden? I don't know what'll happen. We've pretty much given up on appropriations processes for now. There's still a chance of minibuses versus an omnibus coming in the lame duck, but for sure an omnibus or something like that's going to happen because we're only probably going to fund things through early December. There's you asked about some other things that are working on. One of the things we're working on actually in a bipartisan way with Representative Matt Salmon's office is, and I know you've covered this before. I saw you wrote some on this. Is the DEA's ban on kratom, scheduling it into a Schedule I drug when it's a plant and there's some medicinal value. And so we actually have about 33 bipartisan signers right now in the House. The deadline for that letter is today, but it would be essentially taking kratom, which has been found to, I think, help some people get off of opiates and other ailments, PTSD and other things, and it would trying to get them to buy some time to really have a more thoughtful process and allow for public input and some really serious look at the medicinal benefits. We know there's at least 3 patents pending, including some research by the University of Massachusetts right now on it. That's just something that, is closing today, but we're trying to make sure that DA, otherwise on September 30th, we'll put that into Schedule 1.
Fascinating. So you're developing a kratom caucus. Could it be that the pharmaceutical industry, if there's 3 patents on this stuff, could it be that the pharmaceutical industry is leaning on Congress to make the herbal suppliers illegal so that they can keep all the profits themselves?
Certainly that would be something you could look at with this. I think in this particular case, what's happening is there now seems to be a company or companies producing what they call a synthetic heroin. And the way they're doing a synthetic heroin is they're taking anything that might give you any of the effects of what could be part of what happens through heroin, including kratom, to spring a little kratom on it. I think what happened is DA just looked at any component that went into that and decided it's bad, rather than actually saying, oh, wait a minute, this is something that's actually helping people get off of opiates.
Right.
This is something that may trigger some similar effects, but not some of the negative effects. And because of that, I think they just kind of jumped a little quick. But we had Secretary Lynch, I'm sorry, not Secretary, Attorney General Lynch in the Progressive Caucus a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her point blank on this, and she hadn't been fully briefed on the issue. So again, I think to rush something and cause an emergency on this is moving a little too fast. And fortunately, we've got a very interesting bipartisan coalition on this, and I understand Senator Gillibrand may be leading a Senate letter as well.
That would be great because this, I get the calls on this program from people who are, like, this stuff keeps me off heroin. This stuff, keeps me sane. I had no idea. I mean, I'm just learning about this myself right now. But it looks like it might be a very, very useful therapeutic herb. That's remarkable. Now you represent Wisconsin, the 2nd District of Wisconsin, and you're one of the most progressive members of the House Progressive Caucus. Definitely in my mind, one of the best of the good guys. And now increasingly there's this conversation about, could Wisconsin become one of these swing states in the presidential election? I had assumed that would not be the case because Scott Walker's done so much damage to Wisconsin. I figured most Wisconsinites get it, how destructive Republican policies are. And yet Republicans are basically running the state, are they not? What are your thoughts on where your state is at in the presidential election, and going for and generally what the state of this race is right now?
No, it's a conversation point I have pretty much daily. Someone asked around this. I think the concern I personally have is I would like to have Hillary Clinton come back to Wisconsin and reconnect with folks. I think that there's not the same enthusiasm perhaps than there was when President Obama first ran in Wisconsin. And while Trump certainly is the antithesis of Wisconsin. I mean, to me, Upper Midwest are people who are fundamentally kind, nice people. You care about your neighbors. You're modest. You don't brag. I mean, none of those terms have ever applied to Donald Trump.
Right.
So he shouldn't, on the face, connect in Wisconsin. But Hillary Clinton's having a little bit of a hard time connecting. She hasn't been to the state, and we need to get her back to the state. She has early on during the primaries, but not really recently. And I think the Marquette poll, which is one that we follow, 2 polls ago, she was up 6 points. A poll before the one this week, she was up 3, and then this week up 2. So it's getting closer, and that does concern me. The good news is Russ Feingold is still up 6, and he'll probably be the vote leader in Wisconsin. But I would hate to think, I know we're purple, but I like to think of presidential years we're more indigo blue than the reddish sort of purple. We really need to get, I think, Secretary Clinton to come to Wisconsin and have one of those big rallies here and there, and let's get people fired up. I think if Scott Walker was on the ballot, this would be a slam dunk to defeat him. I mean, I don't know if you saw this week, or actually I think it even started last week. Scott Walker on the John Doe investigation, there was a leak on some of the documents.
Yep.
And the fact that the prosecutor said that the John Doe investigation, Scott Walker was not the subject of it. Now we see indeed he was the subject, and that they did not have information about legislation that went through to provide protections for the lead paint industry for poisoning, and about $750,000 went to the recall campaigns during that time at the bequest of the governor's folks. I mean, clearly if they didn't have that information, there should be a chance to look at that information, and there could be something very likely that was against the law. In fact, since then, they've changed the law so they could do that. So they clearly knew they were in violation. But this is the kicker today, Tom. An article this morning that came out in the papers, Scott Walker actually said to the Milwaukee County DA and any DA that looks about prosecuting on this that they say they need more DAs, and he doesn't think they'll need funding for additional DAs if they go and do this because it shows that they're really not that backed up. So he basically threatened the district attorneys, if you go after me, I'm going after your staff publicly.
Whoa. Is that legal?
Well, we're doing a letter that we haven't released, but this afternoon we're going to the Department of Justice saying, hey, we got to make sure that there is no pressure on the district attorneys trying to do their job to not investigate. I mean, Department of Justice may have to get involved. He may have just opened the door for them.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Congressman Mark Pocan. Congressman, thanks so much for dropping by today. It's always great talking.
Of course, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You can find his website, Pocan, Pocan.house.gov, and you can tweet him at Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, Pocan.